Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. We're in good company today, folks. We've got Tori here with me from Tori Talk. No, come on.
I don't know.
We've got excellent company here with Tori. If you are not already subscribed to her channel, definitely go check it out in the description below. There's also a couple other links you might want to check out because she just released a new book. I don't have my copy yet. So yes, thank you. Because I'm like, all I got is my black and white ebook here. And definitely go check that out. With that out of the way, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It's a whole day old already.
It's the baby.
I know.
How was release day?
It was so good. It was like I'm constantly like, as an author, you always, all of the chaos of pre-publishing and all of the things you have to get in order and remember and do and market. And then there's that kind of undercurrent fear that you're like, I don't know how this is going to land. I don't know if people are going to like it. I don't know. It's kind of a, let's see what happens every time. Even when you've put books out before, you never know how people are going to respond to it. And I've just been so grateful and incredibly surprised in a way at how much the community has supported Cold Silver. Not surprised because they aren't supportive, but like just I wasn't sure because it's a completely new series. It's something completely different that I've written before. How are people going to respond to that? And everybody's been really enjoying it. The feedback has been super positive so far. So I'm thrilled, honestly.
Oh, I love to hear it. I'm so glad it's been catching eyes and performing better in terms of like pre-orders and all of that.
Yeah, it beat out Bloodstones.
Yeah, because Bloodstones was your baby, right? At the time too.
So,
but right, and then to see it beat out by the next thing, to me, that would just say, hey, maybe book 2 for Bloodstones will hopefully beat out Cold Silver.
Well, and especially when I drop that cover, everybody's gonna lose their minds.
Ooh, yeah. I hope.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't wait. I can't wait to drop that cover. It's so good.
Well, yeah. So where can people follow you to find out and get a little sneak peek on that?
So the best places to follow me are, you can sign up for my mailing list right on my website, ToriTecken.com. You can also order all my books off my website. If you want to keep up with me on a more regular basis, at Tori Talks 2 on YouTube is my channel. I'm very active. I'm on Twitter as Tori Talks 2, I think. Tori Talks 2. Instagram, Tori Talks 91. And I usually remember to mark it on at least one of those platforms. So if you follow all of them, you should see it somewhere.
There you go. There'll be links in the description too, if anyone is struggling. But another way is just type in Tori Talks and you'll find the little logo with the red hair, headphones, and beanie. So can't miss it.
Can't miss it. Yeah.
And we have some lovely folks with us here. Andrew, welcome. Always good to see you. And the book lounge. Is this Mark?
Mark, yeah.
Mark, yeah. Okay. Hello, Mark. Welcome. Good to see you. I'm so terrible with names, everyone. I'm so sorry. I mostly sleep deprived, so everything I don't remember much.
Well, the problem is everyone has a YouTube username and then that's different than their real name. And then they usually have like a Discord or Twitter handle that's different than those two. So I apologize to everybody all the time too. I try my darndest to keep everybody's names straight, but sometimes I can't remember.
Yeah, same. There's so many different, and even for myself with my channel name, Kay versus Kayla, I get a lot of people asking, which one do you go by? I'm like, either just shout, hey lady, and I'll probably answer.
Hey you.
Yep. We have Matt here with us too.
Hey,
hello, Matt. And Casey, hello. Always good to see you.
Who just came back to Booktube yesterday.
Yes,
I'm very excited about it.
I have to watch the video. And Mark says he's been hearing amazing. So wonderful. So let's do a little pitch. Can you give us a quick pitch for Cold Silver for Souls?
Yes, I can. So, Cold Silver for Souls is the first book in an episodic fantasy western series called the Shade Silver series, and it is about a necromancer bounty hunter named Hunter and her animated corpse Rip in a world loosely inspired by the Yukon Gold Rush, except the Gold Rush is actually a magical shade silver. So, that is the official short pitch. She's seeking justice and then has to seek it for someone else, which is very outside her character. There's Motley Crue because it's me, so there's a Motley Crue. Yeah, and that's kind of the short pitch for it. It's an action adventure more than anything else I've written. So there will be gunfights, there are snarky horses, and there are, just characters, Western characters galore.
Love it. Can we talk about this snarky horse?
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Where did this snarky horse come? There's no name for this horse either, right?
She's the roan mare.
She's the roan mare.
Roan mare. Yep.
Where did this persnickety horse come from?
She's kind of an amalgamation of all of the persnickety horses that I've ridden and been around in my lifetime. There was actually probably the primary inspiration for the roan mare was a horse I rode in horse camp when I was about 13. Her name was Sizzle, and she was a very sassy, was solid as a rock until you get out in the field and there'd be a wildflower randomly in the grass and she would
oh no,
for no reason, and then she'd be completely flabbergasted that there's a flower here, and she'd just stop and she'd stare at it and act like the world was ending. She was very melodramatic. And I had another mare that I rode later on who was a Welsh cob pony mare, so she's shorter, big, tank of a horse. And she was a little nippy. She'd let you know if you didn't get up on the saddle fast enough. She'd kind of reach around and see if you were paying attention.
Right.
So it's kind of
she staked it out. She was like,
she's like, can I nibble on your toes? Are you going to notice this? Yeah.
I personally find that fascinating. So I am actually quite terrified of horses. And the only experiences I've ever had near horses were not positive ones. So I find it fascinating that you can put such personality to horses in on a page, not only recognizing it in person from your experiences, but then translating that to a fictional horse on a page. Are you even mindful of that process, or is it so natural to you at this point, or do you need to be aware of how you're writing them the same way you would a character?
Very much so. I think that's one of the things that I look for when I'm reading fantasy is if somebody's going to go to the trouble of putting an animal companion type character in the story, make it a character. Give it some life and some personality, because that's reality. Anybody who has owned or been around animals of any kind knows that they are all very unique. They have their own personalities. They're all different. And horses are the same way. And so I kind of look at it as just like anybody else in the Motley Crue, the roan mare is in some ways a contrast for Hunter. And also a mirror. There's a reason why Hunter's not willing to get rid of her. She kind of begrudgingly understands that they're both really stubborn. So and Hunter's not going to be beaten by this mare either.
Yeah. So I think Casey has it right here.
The roan mare is actually the protagonist. Yeah.
There you go. Learn something new right there.
That's right. Yeah.
And we have Anitha here with us. Always good to see you, Anitha. And K2, welcome. And
Hello.
Christopher Navo. Always good
Chris.
to see you guys. So yeah, to me, it's one of those processes that I really appreciate because, like you said, if you spent time with animals, you'll recognize it. Dogs, I get. I've had dogs my whole life, but I've never been around horses long enough to learn their body language because they have different body language,
They
means
do.
different
Yep.
things.
Yep.
So it takes a solid amount of experience to be able to put that to the page. So I'm very grateful that you have that experience to give us the roan mare, clearly the star of the show.
I can tell you one horse experience that might shift the balance on your horse opinion a little bit.
I'm suspicious, but all right.
Okay. So my heart horse was like the horse that has always been, he was the one that has meant the most, and like was one of those once in a lifetime kind of animals. We got him when he was about 3, and he'd been shifted between a bunch of owners. And when we first got him, he was so depressed. Like, people do not realize often that animals can get depressed.
Yes,
His name was Lookie, and he was so depressed. He had his head hanging down for like the first 3 weeks we had him, because he'd been shifted around to so many different people. It was like, nobody wants me, this kind of thing. And we started working with him, and originally we were planning on training him and then reselling him. And of course we all fell in love with him, and that went out the window.
Yep. As it does.
But eventually, when my family owned its own hobby farm, we moved out to some acreage and brought Lookie home and put him in the stall in our barn and everything. I was about 14 when we first brought him out there. And as most early teens, I was going through some things, and I would sneak outside to the barn, and I struggled a lot with anxiety and panic attacks when I was younger. Yeah. And I would walk into his stall, and I'd shift in, and he'd be really tired, and he'd kind of wake up and be like, "Oh, hey," and I would go and I'd wrap my hands around his neck and snuggle into his shoulder, and he would wrap his neck around me like a hug. And just sit there until I was calmed down. And I still have his halter. He's passed away now, but I still have his halter, and he was an incredible horse.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to ask the question. Have you written a horse in any of your stories inspired by that one?
I mean, kind of like there's bits of and pieces of me in a lot of my characters. I feel like Lookie was not a super big horse, but he thought he was like, hot stuff.
Oh yeah. As they would.
Yep. And so I would say, like, Brig, who is the war horse in the Bloodstones, that's the main war horse of one of the characters. I'd say there's definitely some Lookie in there, because he thought he was a war horse. Like, he was very like the confidence was a lot bigger than he was.
To battle.
Yeah, exactly. So I would definitely say there's a little of him in Brig for sure. And in the roan, I mean, he was a roan colored horse. So I have a soft spot for roan horses in general. So yeah, there's little bits and pieces of him everywhere.
Oh, I love how the heart just, it clings on to that stuff. And you said, you notice it so quick. You weren't meant to keep him. You weren't going to. Oh, no, heart broke. Got to keep him.
Yep. Too bad. He's ours now. Yeah. So when I went off to college, not to derail this too much, but when I went off to college, we actually donated him and my other horse, Katie, who was a big quarter horse mare, to a stable that did therapy for kids that came out of tough homes or kids with disabilities. And so he was actually a therapy horse for the last 4 or 5 years of his life. And
that's a thing?
Oh yeah. It's a very, very positive therapy form for sure, for a lot of kids. And Lookie was great for the kids that had those really thick walls put up, because Lookie had no concept of like personal space, or he was just like, hello all the time. And so he was really good with the kids that were really, walled off, because he would just go up and be like, hey, I'm your friend,
Yep.
And the lady that had him, right? Exactly. Yeah. And he was a fantastic therapy horse for the last 4 or 5 years of his life. And so.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love to hear it. All right. Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to keep that tucked in the back of my brain for further
Sorry, that was a
research.
tangent, but
No, it's good because I have a healthy respect for horses. I
yeah, as you
appreciate
should.
them. They're elegant, but I will
Mhm.
stand 30 feet away from them at
Sure,
all
that's
times.
fair. Yeah.
You know, they are powerful. I am tiny.
They are. The trick is you have to fool them into thinking that you're bigger than they are.
I don't think I can do that, Tori. I'm a wee thing. So we have Eric here as well. Good to see you, Eric. Thanks for stopping in. Not too much, but I do have a question to get us a little bit back on track here.
Sorry.
Question. No. I always appreciate tangents. Um, so a question I like asking is, what do you want your readers to get out of your recent
Hmm.
publication, Cold Silver for Souls? What do you want them to walk away with after reading it?
I think, ironically enough, because there's a lot of cold settings in Cold Silver, I think a sense of warmth and adventure. I think
Interesting.
because there's a lot of really fun characters in Cold
Mm.
Silver, and it's the kind of book that I feel like is a good relax, sit down and relax with it book and just have fun.
Mm.
Whether you're like us, where you're in the middle of 87 giant series or big books, or it's a very quick, fun read. And
Mm.
I hope it's one of those books. I hope that it becomes one of those books that people feel like they can go back to as a comfort read over and over.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, one of those just solid, you love the characters and it feels like going home every time you go back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you nailed that. I think you're fine.
Thank you.
And Casey here says, my Randy used to do the
Oh.
same. It was so special. Yeah. I'm guessing I think that was around the hug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So, one other thing I wanted to talk about, because so just for everyone watching, actually, before I continue, we do have a little game planned. So Tori and Casey had done a little game last night in their book launch for Agree or Disagree, and I didn't want to let our signs that we made go to
Get
waste.
some use out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to play that game in a little bit. But I do have one question I want to ask
Yeah.
before we do that, and it might take us into some tangents. But I wanted to talk
Okay.
about navigating creative burnout because
Ugh.
I know this was a bit of the origin of how Cold Silver for Souls,
Yeah.
the expansion of it anyway, started. And
Yeah.
so I'll let you kind of delve into as much as you'd like
Sure.
for that topic, and
Mhm.
we'll go from there. But I'd love to talk about this because creative burnout, whether it's with writing, video making, reading, any
Anything.
of that stuff, it is a persistent thing that we have to deal with. So I'd love to
It
know
is.
how you navigated that and how it impacted your work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been writing books for the better part of 20 years now, with a break in there, of course, with college and all of that kind of stuff. But I think for this one, I wrote the short story for an anthology called The Advent of Winter, which came out in December of 2023. And I knew that I wanted to do something completely blank slate to give myself some creative freedom and just play in the sandbox a little bit. And I knew I wanted to write something about a necromancer, and also it'd be kind of fun to write a Western. So let's just throw those things together and see what happens.
Put it in the
Um,
cauldron.
put it in the cauldron and stir a few times. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, at the same time, when I started the novel version of that short story, which ended up being Cold Silver, some pretty major tectonic plate shifts, shall we say, happened in my personal life, and I'm somebody that's very, my emotional status is very tied to my creative output.
Mm.
And sometimes that takes the form of I want to do nothing but write poetry for a while to try to express what I'm feeling, or in this case, I was planning on going back to Legends of the Brewhive, Bloodstone's book 2. And I knew I didn't have the headspace for it. And I knew I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to give it the gravitas that it needed. And so I didn't want the creative well to completely dry up. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in on this Cold Silver project and try something completely new. It's one POV, first person. So it's less moving parts to keep track of. It's a short book. And that'll give me something to kind of keep the creative juices flowing throughout 2024. And that's exactly what it did. And I think what I took away from that is it's a pivot or a change of direction is something that I feel like we should lean into more when it comes to creative burnout, whether that's, hey, I'm really tired of making this type of content. Let me try a different type of video. Let me try something completely different. Let's just rearrange the shelves because we can, because I just want, shift things around. And that's kind of what happened with Cold Silver. It really kind of did a shift of my creative energy from Bloodstones and still gave me something to feel like I was accomplishing. I was seeing the words on the page. I was still working toward a goal, but I allowed myself to say, you know what? I wanted book 2 of Legends of the Brewhive to come out last year or this year, but allowing myself that space to say, it's not going to be the book I want it to be if I write it right now. And now, after Cold Silver, I feel so energized and so excited to jump back into Legends of the Brewhive that I know that the book I'm going to come out with will be 10 times better than the book I would have written if I had stuck with it last year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's doing not just a service to yourself by not forcing yourself into further burnout, but also a service to your readers who were a huge fan of book 1.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of comparisons in regards to time. Many of us want time to pause. We need more time. Time is a thief. But sometimes we do need that extra space, that extra time to move forward.
Yeah.
And so I just want to put because of your experience, I want to put a positive spin on that concept of time too, because a lot of video making, reading, writing, we always wish we had more time. And as much as time and making that time is important to do those things we love, being able to step back is also very important, and giving yourself the space to make sure you're in a good spot to continue.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I want to look back in 5 years, 6 years when the trilogy, when either probably 10 years to get both, not quite, to get both of them done. But for Legends of the Brewhive, I want to be able to look back in 5 years and to know I did the best I could.
Yes.
And that I didn't force it into a space that was less than the vision that I have for that series. Because like you said, Bloodstones is my baby. Like that series is my love letter to all things epic fantasy. And it's a really important trilogy for me. And I want to make sure that I give it the best that I can. And now with Cold Silver, I feel like I have a really good balance of very different tonal stories to kind of jump back and forth between. And that also is a good creative reset, to have something completely different that you can jump into a different world with fresh characters, so that it feels like coming home each time for me too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get a little bit of a change up, a fresh perspective. And I am really curious because you've written in different tenses now. First person and third?
Third person past and first person present.
So since doing the first person present in comparison with that third person past, so do you have a preference now?
I mean, I'm always going to be like, third person past is my sweet spot, right? Like that's my default. Because I like that it still gives you intimacy with the characters, but also allows you a lot of kind of big picture description and, you know, that kind of stuff. But what I enjoyed about the challenge of first person so much is that it really asked me to look at the world of the story in a very different way, because instead of the author voice giving you the description, everything you notice about the world that you're in the story is from Hunter's lens directly. And so I constantly had to ask myself, when she walks into a room, it isn't what's in the room, it's what does Hunter notice in the room? What are the things that she's going to pay attention to, as opposed to what I would want to pay attention to as the author? And sometimes they're the same. But Hunter's also a practical bounty hunter and I'm not. So, you know, so that was a really good challenge that I feel like pushed me as an author in a really good way. I don't know if I could. I think third person is probably still my preference, only because it's what I've been doing for so long.
Right.
But I honestly really enjoyed both.
Okay.
I think it just took the right character for first person.
That makes sense. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
jive with the character, especially as you said, it's so ingrained in their perspective,
Right.
their eyes. If you don't enjoy your own character, I mean,
Right.
you're not in for a good time.
It's not going to be fun. Yeah, and Hunter is a very, very fun character to write. So
I bet. Yeah, there's a little, you know, that stubborn streak in her. I imagine that'd be fun. Necessity, everything's necessity.
And it is freer than third person in a way, because you're allowed to dwell on those intrusive thoughts a little bit more with first person, because whatever Hunter thinks is just there, you know?
Right. Okay.
So
she can take the wheel a little bit more.
Exactly. Which is fun.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I look forward to the side rambles in future.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna jump into the agree or disagree game, and then we'll dive into more questions. I kind of want to space it out a little bit. So the agree or disagree, I thought it'd be fun to do some assumptions about authors, because
he just wants to expose us all.
Yeah, just that's it.
Yeah,
but also because I know there are a lot of people, a lot of readers who never interact with authors, and they have this persona that they've built up about what an author is like and what they do in their writing, like their bat cave, you know, their writing cave. So I wanted to kind of get an author's insight and a reader's insight into these presumptions. So we'll start.
I'm not nervous at all.
No. Let's go. Let's do this. If you need a panic button, let me know.
We'll come up with a safe word.
All right. Sounds good. So the first one is that the first draft is always terrible. Starting coming in strong. Disagree.
So I'm going to caveat this, and I can literally hear Andrew Meredith chuckling somewhere in Colorado right now.
Probably typing furiously.
Right. So I think this really depends on the writer. So for a lot of people, it's a big mess and you just kind of word vomit onto your blank piece of paper, because the biggest hurdle is putting words on the page, right? When you have a blank page staring at you, it's a little, you know,
daunting. Yeah.
It's a little daunting. For me, I spend a lot of time on my first draft. I don't turn off that inner editor completely. So as I'm writing that first draft, I'm actually reworking sentences and paragraphs and things, dialogue. I'll go back and fix something, because I'm the type of person where if I look at a sentence or I look at a paragraph and I know it's wrong and I try to leave it, I will think of nothing else if I try to keep going. No. To some degree. I mean, obviously my novels go through multiple passes, so I can to some degree, but if it's like really glaring, I can't. And I write pretty cleanly from a grammatical and type, like there's not a ton of typos and stuff in my first drafts typically. So I do write a very clean first draft, which isn't A, completely normal, and B, it's not like necessarily the better option. That's just how I write. So I do know a lot of authors that prefer to just get it out and then we fix it later, which is also completely valid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just and while just you saying that, I'm going to put a little note here for everyone watching. There's probably going to be a caveat to all of these. Not everyone is going to fit a square.
From my perspective.
But it's a fun way to learn about Tori's perspectives on these as well,
Yeah.
while debunking some myths potentially.
Yeah, not all of us write in bat caves.
No, you don't type on those like
No.
vintage typewriters?
I wish. That would be awesome.
In a
I totally
cafe.
would if I had one. You know, yeah, really loudly clacking away in the corner of the cafe. Yeah, exactly.
With your 16 coffee cups just empty around you. Yeah.
And our like really red eyeballs and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, frizzy hair in a bathrobe. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
frizzy hair in a bathrobe. That I can.
Yeah,
that I can
there
bring
you
to the
go.
table.
So the next one is that writer's block is a myth. It doesn't exist.
I feel like such a horrible, like, I'm such a writer right now because I'm like, define writer's block.
This is why we ask the experts. Agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Right.
here's why. I think if you are defining writer's block as just an absolute, I cannot write, I think it's kind of like, you know how anger is a secondary emotion? There's always something behind it, right?
Yes.
So for me, that's kind of what writer's block is. That's
Okay.
the symptom. What's behind it? Do you need a creative reset? Do you need to try a completely blank slate? Do you not know your characters well enough? Do you need to do some outlining? Like what is stopping, what is driving you into that dead end? Because usually you can like back yourself out of it.
You're essentially triaging the symptom and then
it's like a
treating
trauma
it.
unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I do think writer's block is a secondary side effect of something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that way, is it the be all end all? No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so
that'd be my answer.
Myth debunked. There we go. We have a few comments from the first one here. Casey says, depends on how much of an editor the author is. And Eric says, I loosely try to edit as I go. After I write a chapter, I will reread it before starting the next one. Smart.
I usually do too.
Yeah, with if I were writing, my memory would not last that long. So I'd have to reread it.
Exactly. What just happened? I don't remember what just happened.
Yeah, I just checked out. The characters took over, you know. Andrew says, I agree. We say first draft is always terrible. To make it okay for new authors to not feel so bad about what they're writing. The feeling this is terrible is normal. Yeah.
100% normal. Yes. Because I even if I'm editing as I go, I still, Andrew and I call them quit days, where we will message each other and we'll be like, I'm horrible at this. This is garbage and I should quit writing and never touch a keyboard again. And then usually within an hour, we're fine. But like,
just need a snack.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome is definitely there, regardless of how you approach your first draft.
Yeah. And Andrew just clarifies he agrees with what you said.
Well, good. I'm just kidding.
There you go. So the next one is social media is essential for authors. It's an essential tool for authors. It's a hard one. Agree. Yeah, I mean,
I do think like I'm going to try and branch out into in-person events more now. I think the way that I would caveat this one is that I think it's essential, especially starting out, because it allows you to build a village and meet
Yeah.
people in your field from all over the world who can help and give you feedback and advice and just give you a chance to kind of be in that world a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be totally honest, having a YouTube channel and building an audience on YouTube and on Twitter and through my mailing list, that has changed everything for me in terms of my writing career and my, the support that I've had for the books has been huge from those sources. So in that way, yeah. And so it's very overwhelming, but
Yeah.
kind of,
It,
yeah.
it is, yeah, because even in our personal lives, social media is overwhelming. And then
Oh
to try
yeah.
and add marketing and networking to that, yeah, that would
Mm-hmm.
be a lot. It's a lot to manage.
Well, I'm constantly
Mhm.
like this week, I'm constantly thinking like, okay, so I should do this, and this on Instagram. I should post this on Twitter. I need to make a YouTube video about that. And it's a lot. And in fairness, I have a lot more of that than probably the average author because I'm
Right.
also a content creator and
Yeah.
reviewer. Um, so that side of it isn't necessarily common. But I would say, as a word of encouragement to anybody that's like, oh, it's so much, which I totally get, just pick
Yeah.
one. You don't have to be good at all of them right away. Like pick the one you're most comfortable on. Like if Instagram is the platform that you enjoy being on the most, work on just figuring out how to post consistently and interestingly on Instagram and just do that for a while. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to conquer Rome in a day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll add to that by saying by doing one platform at a time, you get to understand the audience's expectations of your content because you can
Yes.
post the same thing to every platform and the
Will
reactions
perform
will all be
differently.
different. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just one at a time.
Yeah.
All right, the next one. Authors always include a piece of themselves in their stories. Yeah, I thought that might be your answer.
Yeah, instant
Yeah.
agree. Even if it's subconscious, I
Yeah.
don't feel like there's any way to completely separate yourself from what you're writing because it's
Yeah.
coming
Okay.
from a very deep part of yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one kind of ties in with that.
Okay.
So I'm really kind of curious with this one. Authors
Okay.
always agree with the message in their books. Ah, all right.
So this is something I think that I answer as much as a reader reviewer as I do as an author.
Mm,
Um, because well, you and I like books both with
mhm.
some pretty despicable characters in them.
Oh, they're horrible. They
Yeah.
should be,
Yeah.
just put away
Put
if they
away
were
on an
real.
island somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I think whatever topics an author is addressing in their novel, they should be aware and responsible of.
Mm.
And that's a big thing, and not shock value really bothers me. But that's a whole different rabbit trail. So
Yeah.
if it's gratuitous or it's meant for shock value, then I might have a different approach to this. But I think in general, often authors use fiction as a way to grapple with hard things
Mm,
and controversial things and frustrating things they've experienced in their past. Um,
right.
so if you have, a character who's just gaslighting everybody and like just, this awful, terrible person, how is the author utilizing them, right? Like,
Mm,
is it if you feel that kind of instant, oh my gosh, we've all been
yeah.
around or known somebody kind of like that in our lives, and yeah, I think sometimes authors get jumped all over a little bit too much for that,
Yeah.
where people immediately will go, oh, clearly because this character thinks this way, so does the author.
Yes.
No,
It's
not
yeah.
necessarily.
It's a very
Yeah.
common thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tricky as readers, we associate messaging with icons, basically,
Mhm.
even with celebrities, actors, the people, the things that they do.
Yeah.
the general public will automatically associate that with their they put them on a pedestal at that point.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's no longer a person behind that face who is, just
Flawed.
as unique and
Yeah.
involved in their own lives as we are.
Right.
So, it's that separation, I think, that makes
Hmm.
it hard for people.
I mean, even if you look at Cold Silver as an example of that, Hunter takes the law into her own hands quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that and again, there's a lot, we could go into that for hours, but like,
Yeah.
that's, that's not something I always agree with.
Yeah.
So just because, and through Hunter, I'm exploring themes of law and justice. And what does it look like when somebody either is forced to or chooses to take law into their own hands? But I don't necessarily, I wouldn't make the same choices that Hunter does every
Yeah.
time. So,
And
yeah.
it's also a different time, essentially. You're looking back in
Mhm.
society. So you're looking back into a time where the law was developing, the
Exactly.
society was developing. So, the rules are a little bit more simplified in that time frame.
Right.
And they didn't have the capabilities of being like, oh, GPS, I know where you are. It was-
911.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was, people could get away with stuff more back then. And then,
Yeah, absolutely.
you kind
You
of
had to
had
do,
to,
yeah.
you had to take more action. So yeah, you're right. We could go down a rabbit hole with that one. But yeah, so Tim is here as well. Good to see you, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
So before we do go down a rabbit hole, let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
If a reader loves a book, they should reach out to the author to let them know. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like no author is going to be like, no, please do not tell me that you loved my book. But
there was a chance.
there's a chance. The hesitation with that is only if you want to. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it's very much a situational thing. But generally
Absolutely.
speaking, like 99 out of 100 authors are going to be so tickled by that, like sending them a DM and just being like, hey, that I loved this book, just so you know, and like loved this character, really liked whatever thing about it. Yeah, that's a huge highlight for a lot of authors. So don't feel afraid to do that, is what I would say.
And that's kind of why I put that one on here, because I've talked to a lot of people who, again, they put them up on that pedestal and they think, oh no, I can't reach there. They don't want to hear from me. I'm going to be bugging them. So I wanted to put this one on there for that reason.
Well, and I will say, as somebody who has experienced this quite a few times at this point.
Sorry, Andrew's coming in here.
The caveat to that would be, don't do something like, hey, I read your book and gave it 5 stars. Here's my book.
Yeah.
Please read it.
We're talking genuine,
yeah, absolutely.
Genuine communication, not networking.
Yeah.
For the sake of
as long as you approach it in a respectful way and you're not, pushing an author's boundaries, go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a few left. How you holding up?
Okay. I'm good. I'm ready.
You ready? All right.
Hold on.
Gotta prep there.
All right, we're good.
All right. An author's reading tastes reflect in their own stories. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are all about what I expected. So we're
yeah, I mean, because here's how I would just like, if you do nothing but read a very specific subgenre of fantasy, it's going to reflect in the book you write, right? It's going to feel very similar to the one subgenre of fantasy that you read. And I think that kind of, I can tell, let me put it this way. I can tell when an author reads widely.
Okay.
Because the story feels different. It feels like there's just deeper levels to it, because it doesn't follow the expectations quite as much.
Right. Like a formulaic,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
setup.
So I mean, I do encourage authors to read outside your comfort zone. Try reading different genres because you never know. You can learn so much from genres that aren't the one you're writing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. All right. I like it. I like it. And the next one, writers are always observing people around them. I knew it.
Yeah, I am such a creepy
Yep.
people watcher. It's so true. Like, I would describe it as I am genuinely fascinated by
Mm.
humans.
I mean,
Like,
understandable. We're weird.
yeah, and
I
like there's
mean, I'll
always
speak for myself.
something.
I'm weird.
Yeah, and well, most of my friends are weird and I like it that way. So
There you go.
it's
Okay.
good.
All right.
But I mean, you go to the grocery store and there's that really big personality, like 85-year-old woman in the line ahead of you, and you can hear her just got some kind of an accent and she's like paying with a million different coins. And like, you know, there's just there's just something weird and wonderful about random people.
Yeah, you're in good
um,
company. Eric says, yeah,
yeah,
him and his wife do that as well.
there's absolutely people that I've just run into in my lifetime that have been like have gotten a nod in my books somewhere because I was like,
Yeah,
that's a really interesting like fashion style or accent or phrase, or sometimes the way that they like interact with somebody else or even the way they move. Like it's just
yeah,
it's really cool to kind of file all those things away in your head, and it just gives you a better depth of understanding as you're creating your big cast of characters, right? You want to give them a depth and give them all a lived in kind of feeling. And
yeah.
I think the more you people watch, the easier that is to do.
So I'm gonna put a question here with
Okay.
that comment and that answer because we've been talking about poor memory. How do you remember those little quirks, those traits, long enough to put them into just like even a background character in a story?
I think I kind of osmosis it more than anything else. I don't know, like
Absorbs.
yeah, it just sort of goes
Yeah.
into the creative amoeba up there. It's kind of like a dust bunny, where
Mm.
it's just a, conglomeration of a bunch of different random bits that are all stuck together.
Okay,
Um,
so just based on that description, I would then assume that these people that you're remembering these traits from were quite memorable.
yeah,
They stood
yeah.
out. They weren't like the average Joe, so to speak.
No.
They were, memorable for a
Although
reason.
sometimes, like in Cold Silver, I'm channeling a lot of my upbringing in the rural Midwest.
Mm,
So I'm around a lot of really down to earth farm families, and I have been my whole life. And that's
yeah,
where Hunter's very light Midwestern drawl comes from. And when you go up to her hometown of Paradise, there's the guy sitting out on his front porch just watching the
yeah,
non-existent traffic go through the town. And like part of that's just the osmosis of it, of just being around it for so long. Like, could I write a novel set in New York City? Probably not.
right,
I would
right.
do like a Midwesterner who's been there once. Like it'd be
I
a
went back home.
caricature. Yeah, it'd be a caricature,
Yeah,
right? To some degree. Whereas somebody who's lived in New York City for a decade is going to be able to give it more of a lived in feel than I ever would be.
yeah,
Um, so in that way, write what you know, like infuse
mhm,
your books with things that you're around a lot as much as
yeah,
you can, because that's what's going to give it. Like Cold Silver, I live out in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, you write what you know, the cold,
exactly. The
unfortunately.
cold. That's right.
We've got Nick here. Good to see you. Long time no see. I hope you're doing
Hello.
well. And, yeah, I agree. The description of that or the explanation of that immediately reminded me, because you said New York, of Ben Stiller. Majority of his movies are somewhere in New York. If you go back in time,
Yeah.
like, loves New York.
Yes.
And those movies did well because I think he represented the chaos
The
of New
culture of
York.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a Canadian, New York is terrifying. I've been there. It's terrifying.
Yeah, same. No, I'm way too much of a wide open spaces kid to like, I've been there
Yeah.
once, I survived it, and then I went home.
Yeah, you survived the taxis. They didn't, you almost got run over.
Ugh, barely. Yeah. Got almost
Yeah.
swindled out of our hot dog money when I was 6 months pregnant by a hot dog vendor in Central Park, and, it's
Oh my
great fun.
God.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So I put that
oh,
in there. That was a very real experience.
yeah, I bet. Oh my gosh. All right. We're going to have to talk about where that is later. For the next one, writing is a
Okay.
lonely profession. Do you need your panic button?
Um,
You can borrow mine. It's imaginary, but both. Okay. Well, all right. I'll
yeah.
take it. I'll take it.
Yes, in practice, at the end of the day, I would lean on agree only because the act of writing itself, it's you in a room with a piece of
Mm,
paper or a document, and at the end of the day, you are the only person that can put those words on the page.
absolutely.
No matter how big of an army of people you have behind you, which is absolutely necessary,
Yeah.
um, at the end of the day, it's down to you and how bad do you want it.
Yes, that's a good
Because
point too.
when people ask me like, "Oh, I can't believe you actually like finish books," I'm like,
Oh, sorry.
you know, right?
Yeah,
But
from
like
my
to the
perspective,
average
I can agree.
yeah, the number of people who I've heard in my life say, "Oh, I want to write a book someday."
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going to separate the people that actually will from the people that'll just say that for the rest of their lives is how bad do they want it?
Yeah.
Honestly. Like if
Yeah.
you really are like, nope, I need to do this. This is something in my life that I need to do. It'll happen. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're driving the cart. Like
Yeah.
nobody can write the words for you.
Yeah, your level of dedication is determined by that.
Yeah.
I
I
I
would
yeah,
put the
no.
disagree on it afterwards to say that you shouldn't stay in a lonely place. Like get people
Mm,
around you, build a village, have writer friends, have reader friends, have editor, artist, etc. friends. Like
yeah.
don't isolate yourself intentionally.
Yeah, and I was gonna add to that too. I imagine the, writing today compared to pre-internet,
Mhm.
very different. You
Very
have the
different.
capability of finding like-minded people to
Hmm.
help with the verbal work through of ideas
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
collaboration in terms of inspiration and narrowing down ideas and
Right.
concepts. So there's a lot more accessibility compared to back in the day, pre-internet. It was people just chilling on their own, writing stories, and then,
Yep.
going to publishers,
Yeah.
and getting critiqued or rejected or, whatever happened with that process. So, yeah, I think the times have changed the
Agree.
writing perspective too, writing
Totally
experience,
agree.
sorry.
What's made authors and the chasm between authors and readers is almost non-existent now.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
lot of ways. For some authors, it still is there, but for a lot of us, like a reader can DM me on Twitter, and most of the
Yeah.
time I'll respond, and like, you know, so yeah, I mean, which is cool in a lot of ways, and in some ways, it comes with its own problems, but I think it's
As anything.
demystified authors a lot,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, everything comes with good and bad, right?
Hmm.
Nothing is black and white,
Hmm.
right? And it's not one way or the other. So,
Yeah.
and we just have some comments here I want to catch up on because we are not alone in the New York experience.
Nope. I don't
Yeah,
get it.
don't get it.
I'm
I
happy
actually
for the people that love it.
am. Exactly. Happy for those people, couldn't do it.
Nope.
And then Eric, yeah, it says it can be lonely sometimes. That is why I reached out to other authors. You need people who can
Yep.
relate.
Absolutely.
Andrew, yeah, says very true. For the most part, unlike other art, writing is more often met with "That's nice, dear." Yeah, why? Wait, is
Well,
it
I
that
mean,
you
I
know?
think it's like with anything where you are really, I mean, obsessive has kind of a negative connotation to it, but anybody, I
Mm,
mean, if you think of somebody who runs marathons and they're constantly training and they're constantly on
yeah,
a specific diet and they're doing fitness and they're, really that's a passion point for them. I am not a marathon runner.
right.
I am, because I'm genuinely interested in people, I will ask them questions to try to understand why they're doing this thing that I don't understand. um, but I'm never like, there's a big difference between that and
Mm,
talking to people who get it, who
yeah,
also run marathons, who also know what it takes and what it feels like to get yourself to that point. And I think for writing, it's the same way.
yeah, okay. Yeah, Andrew's comment there is jealousy.
Yeah.
There you go. And then the last one I have for you here is authors are night owls.
That one I have to give you there we go. I can't answer that. Because I can't give a
Straight down the
blanket
line.
statement because I am a
Mhm.
night owl. Andrew
Yeah,
Meredith wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning like a crazy person to write for
good
two
on him.
hours before his family gets up. So
Yeah,
I think it really depends on each author and it really depends on what works in your lifestyle.
yeah.
Um, I am a night owl. My best writing tends to happen between about 9 o'clock in and at night to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So
So yeah,
I'm gonna do a follow-up question there.
yeah.
Would you say then it is the time of day where the author is most mentally clear?
uh,
Or is it a little bit of the fog that helps?
I think there a little bit. It depends on the type of scene that I'm writing. To be honest,
Okay.
um, the so in Bloodstones, well, Cold Silver too. Um, the really emotional scenes that really take a lot out of me, I actually
Mm,
prefer to write late at night when I'm in the house alone. If I need to have a cry, I can.
yeah.
If and it also at night you're a little bit tired from the day and your emotions are a little higher to the surface
Alright, yeah, yeah.
and it's easier to dip into that well. I think if I'm
Okay.
trying to write a political conversation, I don't want to do that at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I mean,
Right, I need a little
understandable.
more clarity there. Yeah. So I think it depends on what scene I'm writing, how emotional or how like easily accessible are those emotions for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's put a bonus question here for agree or
Okay.
disagree because it
Okay.
ties into this.
Okay.
Um, are authors most creative at the point in which they are just about to fall asleep?
Okay. Whoops. So here's the thing about that. I'm sure a lot of my author brothers and sisters will agree with me on this because it's always for me when I'm out and I've forgotten a notebook
Of course.
or I'm the one driving or I have just about fallen asleep and I'm like, 60% asleep. And all of a sudden my brain will be like, okay, so you know that scene you've been stuck on for like 2 months? What if this, and this happened? And then you put it together and then you had this conversation, then everything would work out. And if you let yourself fall asleep, you will forget it.
Oh, you will.
You will
Absolutely.
forget it. So I have a
100%.
notebook right next to my bed with a pen on it because I will like
Yeah.
groan, roll over, grab the notebook, scribble, hope that it's legible, and then go back to sleep. But I've had some nights where that happens like every 10 minutes for like an
Yeah.
hour. And every time I think, okay, I've got it all down now, then my brain's like, Okay, and
So
um,
is it not
ugh,
just worth it to just get up and start typing, or
I have done that a few times, and I'm just
okay.
over there zombied at my keyboard, like trying to just, then I just word vomit onto the page and I don't care about editing because I'm so tired, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'll fix it in the
Half of it.
morning.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we have
but
some more coffee,
I don't drink
and tea.
coffee.
Tea?
I'm actually completely off caffeine. I don't drink caffeine of any kind.
Oh, has that changed things for you? No? Okay,
I
lovely.
have never I have never drunk coffee. I've always
Oh,
hated
okay.
the taste and smell of it.
Yep, I'll agree to that. I don't
Um,
like coffee
yep.
either.
And I don't mind tea, but I have found that for me, it interacts with my ADHD very weirdly, where for a lot of
Gotcha.
people, the caffeine actually helps balance them out. For me, it makes me more hyperactive and jittery.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and I can't think clearly. I
Yep.
can't, like, it gives me heart palpitations sometimes. So my body's just like, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually gave up caffeine when I was in college, and that was like 12 years ago.
Good on you. Yeah,
So
I still drink caffeine in tea, but I think the tea that I drink is less than half the amount of
yeah,
coffee. It's a lot less.
yeah,
But I like you, I don't like the smell of coffee. I don't like the taste of it. If I do end up picking something that's coffee, it's usually the lattes that are like this much
yeah.
coffee and it's decaf
Milk and
and
cream, and
drenched
yeah,
in milk, you
yep.
know? And Tim here saying, I guess we need to stop meeting for coffee. That so we can still meet up for coffee, Tim, because while you are getting coffee, I am actually getting hot chocolates secretly. So and they are
Nice.
delicious hot chocolates.
There you go.
But yeah, I find that curious because yeah, coffee makes me
Yeah, I can't.
heart anxious. Yeah, I can't do it. Can't do it. Very
Yeah,
similar
I
to you.
don't even want to know what would happen if I had an energy drink. I don't want to know. Would not
Don't.
be good.
No,
Would
don't.
not be good.
So we're at the hour mark. Do you have a little bit more time? Because I don't want to take too
I
much. I know you
do. Nope. For
okay.
you, as much
Oh,
time as you want.
thank you. You know I always have so many questions. So
I love it. I love it. Authors hate being asked questions about their
oh,
books.
you know, torture. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, thanks, Tim. It's not such a secret. They do have amazing hot chocolates. How can you say no?
Mm,
And
why
then you
not?
get the top with, a little bit of caramel drizzle when on a day when you just need a little bit more,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah. We have Fox here with us, Capricious Fox. Welcome. Good. And saying, I don't drink too much coffee because it makes me drowsy.
Interesting.
Interesting. Jinx. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that I've never heard of that one actually. All right, so we're going to continue on with a couple more here, and these are
Okay.
more fun ones because I know
Okay.
you're probably going to have so many interviews asking all the serious questions.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep it fun. What do you admire about Hunter's character, and then what do you
Ooh.
dislike?
Oh boy.
Let's
Well,
break her down.
I'll start with the bad news first. Hunter needs therapy desperately.
Mm,
Hunter, most that's true for most of my protagonists. But Hunter is so afraid of letting people close to her and losing them that
mm,
she pushes people away. And that is definitely something I can't hypocritically point fingers at her for because I've done it. But it's something that I have grown and healed away from where she is not there. Right.
mhm.
She's still stuck in that, and she's still stuck in a lot of anger, and she's not willing to face what's behind her anger either.
Yeah,
Yet. We'll get there eventually.
yeah, we'll triage Hunter eventually.
We'll triage, yes. Uh, and because of that, she does make some fairly selfish decisions that impact other people in negative ways, and deprives them of the kind of depth of relationship that she is capable of.
Mm,
So that's something that it's not necessarily something I dislike, but it's something that I know is a, you know, it's a negative of her current personality. Something I admire about her. I admire her adaptability.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns in Cold Silver, and there's a lot of things thrown at Hunter that she is not expecting and wouldn't have chosen for herself.
Yeah.
And she does a pretty good job of like trying to roll with it and just adapt and like, okay, we're changing course now. What does that look like? What do I need to do? How do I, forge a new path through the weeds? So I admire that about her, and the fact that she is loyal to a fault despite herself. Like,
Yeah.
she's still pushing people away, but she's, she's in their corner, even
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm mulling over it. It makes a lot of sense. Just in the
Yeah.
conversations we've had.
At least I know my characters.
Yeah. Well, I'd hope so.
I hope
You
so
kind
too.
of made them
Yeah.
up.
I did, sort of.
So the next one I wanted to ask was, you've got some lovely side cast. They
Thank you.
all have their own little quirky personalities and traits. They're all distinct
Yeah.
from one another. And I am curious, if you
Okay.
had to pick only one side character to delve into their story, whether it's the backstory or their future,
Okay.
which
Ooh.
character would you pick?
I mean,
Sorry, I
thanks.
saw
Yeah,
Casey's
case
phone.
is accurate.
Yeah.
I know there's a river in there somewhere. I don't know what the name is. I mean, and I'm not saying this just because several people have already asked for it. But there's a character in the side cast named Reverend Ambrose, who is a older pastor character who runs the little church up in Hunter's hometown. And he is a war vet who was a soldier in a battle that was mostly naval combat, and then decided to, once that war was over, decided to come back to Paradise and become a reverend and a blacksmith. And I think his story would be really interesting to write as a younger man during that war era, and his journey to where he is when Hunter knows him. Because he wasn't always the sturdy anchor that he is when we meet him. And I think he would be a character that would be a challenge for me, because I have not written a protagonist like him, like a protagonist like him. I've had side characters that kind of dip into that archetype, but not a protagonist. So I think he would be a really good, fun challenge to write his backstory. Yeah.
I love it personally because that's one I want to see. So I'll be selfish here, but
That's fair. That's fair.
It would be really interesting though because of that history, right? It opens up a lot of questions, and because we get such a short time with him in just the beginning of the book, even that introduction makes you so curious to learn more about him. It's such a hook.
Yeah.
And it's a tease in the best way possible.
Oops. I would say besides him, the other character that I would probably put on that second highest would be Jo Farstep.
Okay.
She's another slightly older character who was in the kind of this world's equivalent of the Civil War that was between people who thought magicians should have all the power versus not. And she was a sharpshooter very young sharpshooter in that war. And I think she would be another one that would be fun to write in her perspective as well.
Okay. All right. I could see that.
I like soldiers. What can I say?
Well, and I love that you pick I think there might be more, but I love how you pick the two characters that stand out with a lot of backstory mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two that stand out with a lot of mystery throughout. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of get a vibe for the other ones,
Yeah.
but I think those two, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna broaden the horizon a little bit
Let's
here.
go.
We're just gonna go fantasy.
Okay.
Talking about magicians and magic. If
Mm-hmm.
you were dropped into a fantasy world and you had your choice of magical ability,
Hmm.
which would you pick?
Oh boy. Um, Trying to think through all of the all of my favorite fantasy worlds right now.
Just like going through the categories in your brain, you know?
Good. I mean, okay, so I'm a big X-Men nerd.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm gonna go with Magneto's ability to manipulate metal.
Interesting. What if you're dropped in
Mhm.
the desert? What do you do?
I mean,
Hope you're wearing metal
there's
shoes. Like, get
how
out of there.
deeply can I pull metal out of the ground is my first question. Yeah, I mean, I've always thought Magneto's ability was just so cool.
It really
Um,
is.
it's so cool, and it's very, extroverted, spectacular. So
Yeah.
it's hard to hide.
A bit dramatic.
It's very dramatic. Yep.
Yeah.
Magneto is 100% a drama queen.
Oh, yeah.
Either that, okay, I would for practicality's sake and or just general defense. I'm also a big fan of Wolverine having like claws that just shoot out of his hands. That would be pretty cool.
Don't talk about drama, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny because people always answer this question with like, I want to fly, or like the normal answers to those questions. I'm like, I want to have claws come out of my hands.
Yeah. I'm ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
One of
the
those two.
answers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one just in generic, because I do love X-Men, and I think there is actually a character who is quite might have some of these powers, but they're a little bit more obscure of a character. But
Okay.
essentially the ability to control plant life. Because
Ooh.
if
Yeah.
you're stranded anywhere, you can just grow food in a minute, right?
See,
You can
that's
just
such a
grow the plant.
practical answer. You would actually survive. I would look cool with my magical ability, but I would die very quickly. Kay's just over here surviving with her beautiful forest, Garden of Eden over here, and I'm in the desert somewhere.
Yeah, because then, if you think of it, you could produce food. If you're traveling, just, I need a potato, just grow it out of the ground. But yeah, I think that would be also a really cool power, because then, you leave flowers wherever you go. If you're in a good mood, you could just, or, if you're in a bad mood, destroy everything around you. But it just depends.
Kill everything.
Depends.
See, that's the thing. If you have like a Magneto or Wolverine ability, you'd be fantastic at like combat in minor surroundings. But if you have that big of a plant life ability, you could just take out an entire planet.
Tim basically
Not
said,
wrong.
Yeah.
See, I've been telling people, they don't believe me.
No.
It's the nice, quiet ones you got to watch out for.
Kind of is. But yeah, similar to, I guess, poison ivy, except the not crazy part. I would hope. But yeah, it would be. See, okay, I'm not the only one here. Capricious Fox just said blood magic. I'm not the only one.
No.
Every power has the possibility for good and bad. Same as people.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
100%.
I choose flowers. Just keep bringing me hot chocolates. We'll be happy.
Perfect.
So to close out, I do want to open the floor to our guests here in the live chat. If they do have a question for Tori, if you guys have questions, pop them in. We'll try and get to a few of those before we close out for the evening, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got things to do, places to be. So everyone watching, pop your questions in, and we'll get to those. In the meantime, No, never mind. Chris, look at that. He's on it. Um, Chris says, with your diverse genres, subgenres of books you have now published, are there any other genres or subgenres you may be interested in writing? You branching out.
Great. Yeah, great question, Chris. I said I had an interview with Griftkin on Monday, and he had asked, I'm trying to remember how this came up. I would like to tackle like a Motley Crue sci-fi at some point.
Mm.
Something kind of in the Firefly direction, potentially. Not
Ooh.
quite as Western, probably, because I'm kind of going that route with Cold Silver. But I would like to do a sci-fi. Trying to think what else. I do actually have, so like with necromancers and werewolves, I like taking common character tropes and putting a spin on it. So I would like to try my version of like vampires / blood magic at some point.
Ooh.
I have an idea percolating back there at some point. I also have the beginnings of so I have said for years that I am not the biggest fan of dragons in fantasy because I think they're overdone often. So naturally I wanted to challenge myself and was like, okay, so if you were going to write a dragon story, what would that look like? And I actually have a very early started manuscript for something for the future with that.
That's exciting.
That is very like everything I would want out of a dragon, because you got to write the book you want to read first.
Yeah.
So
well, of course. And that's, I think, because I agree. I do feel like dragons are a little repetitive at this point.
Yeah,
There's
it's a good word
still,
for it.
the standing and most recognizable creature when it comes to fantasy. I don't think it's ever going to go away from fantasy, and not that I want it to, but I'd love to see some freshness with it. I'd love to see some new ideas, some new creativity behind it. Dragons have been a part of, human cultures and histories and stories for years. Let's add something new. Just, not so repetitive.
I'd say outside of fantasy too. There's a historical fiction that I'd really like to write that's based on a story from my family, where my great grandmother was part of a family of 9 children who were all taken away from their parents at a very young age and put in an orphanage here in Minnesota.
Wow.
And they were all split up, and some of them did not see each other again for 60 years. And the oldest sibling in that group, my great aunt Dorothy, who I had the privilege of knowing when I was younger, is just one of the most incredible women I have ever met in my life. And her story of that in childhood of being like 11 when all of this happened. I want to write a historical fiction from her perspective based on some of her life.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That one I've got the first line of the book, and I have a whole bunch of family history stuff that I need to pour over, and
Yeah, that would be amazing. Andrew, if you're still watching, I hope you're taking notes and you are going to hold Tori accountable for all of these story ideas.
I'm sure he will. He thinks I'm going to publish way more books than I ever do in a year. So,
well, and like we were talking earlier, time. It's all time.
I'm working on it. I'm making forward progress, and that's the goal.
Absolutely. That's what matters most. So last call for anyone who wants to pop questions in for Tori. And while we're waiting for those, all the comments there. Yeah.
I will.
Architecture.
I'm excited for that one.
While we're waiting, can you give everyone watching a book recommendation, something they should read, you recommend, whether it's a underrated book, a hidden gem, just you love it because you love it? One of those. Thank you, Andrew.
Andrew's taking notes. Okay, an indie that everybody should read is, if you, for some weird reason, haven't picked up Anitha Stop reading I had another book before that one, just so you know, but I was going to recommend that one. By Blood, by Salt by J.L. Odom is one of the best indie books I've read in years. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you have not picked up Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith in the Collation Saga, that is another one that I would highly recommend. Both of those are, if you are looking for something different in your fantasy, both of those are great places to start. And then outside of indie, I'm going to throw the City Watch by Terry Pratchett at everyone again. Ooh. Because it's phenomenal and I love it to bits and pieces.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, with that being said, thank you for a wonderful conversation, all of the insights into the creative process and your writing, your stories, and your characters. Thank you for tolerating all of my questions.
Oh gosh, I appreciate whenever anyone is willing to share their time and their channel enough to let me come on and talk about my books. So thank you for letting me crash your party.
Oh, by all means, we have to throw a party for this. Absolutely. It's always a good time.
Absolutely.
So thank you to everyone who has watched now with us live and later on in the replay. Again, go check out Tori's channel. Go check out her books. You have a few options to pick from. And definitely remember to write reviews for the books that you're reading, because reviews help not just authors, but they help readers find a book they might love too. So make sure that you're following Tori for those updates as well with the artwork. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much again, everyone, for watching, and Tori for your time. And as always, take care of yourselves.